Hi everyone,
Sorry.
it's September 8th, 2022, and this is the Backdrop Weekly Developer Meeting. We get together every week to talk about priorities facing the Backdrop project, and usually with a heavy focus on core. This week is 1 week out from the release of Backdrop 123. We're in the calm period, sort of between feature freeze, which happened on September 1st, and the release that happens September 15th. So this meeting, we'll talk about the last minute changes that are still happening in 123, and also other areas that we can put some effort towards before we open up core for new development again. So we'll do introductions of those present. My name is Nate Lampton. I'm a core committer for the Backdrop project, and I'm calling from Oakland, California. We'll go to Joseph and then Jen.
Hi, I'm Joseph. I'm a developer from Las Vegas, Nevada.
Thanks, Joseph. Jen?
Jen Lampton, also joining from Oakland, California. And do you want me to go into community contributions? Okay,
Yeah.
there's one new contrib module this week from Robert Lang, Entity Cache Administration. I'm not sure what it does. I haven't looked at it yet, but it looks interesting.
It allows you to selectively enable and disable entity caching on a per bundle basis through the UI.
Great. We were talking about that just recently, so it's good to see that's out already. That's great.
Nice. Right. Let's see. General discussion. We had a question brought up. Yorkshire Pudding, I believe, raised the issue that has reared its head many times before, issue 38 to 24. And the title of this issue is Throw a Warning if Max Input Vars is not properly set. We've had a pull request for this in the works for quite a while. Actually, I don't know, this was open in 2019. And Jen actually just spent the last couple of hour like getting that one updated and re-rolled, so we now have a fresh pull request there to take a look at and review. You want to say anything about that, Jen?
It looks like it's still failing tests. I can't get the same tests to fail on my local computer, so I'm trying to figure out why that is.
I was I was thinking, I looked at this pull request, and the status report portion of it is entirely independent, could be done separately, and also has almost no impact on existing sites. It's literally just a warning saying, hey, you're probably going to have a problem if you use the default value of 1,000.
So what you're recommending is to write a new pull request that's just the status report message, and that could get into the next minor release, and then we can work on everything else to come later.
Yep.
Huh.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I think that would be a great thing to put in as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And it is kind of a good opportunity right now, doing it at 123, because it might be, I mean, it will be somewhat alarming, quite literally, that the status report will be throwing a warning when previously it wasn't, and all you did was update core, right? You didn't do anything, and something is wrong. But that's not the fault of the person doing the upgrade. That's just literally like it's always been wrong, and you just haven't known about it. And for a lot of people, the default value is actually fine. So, yeah, I mean, for a little while at least, right? People don't usually run into it until they get a couple dozen contrib modules installed and the permissions page or something like field permissions, that adds like a ton of checkboxes. So yeah, but I think the status report thing, that would be really excellent to separate that out, and then that could go in right away. Yeah, I have to wonder if that would have helped Martin in this situation, that he might not have known about it.
Yeah, it definitely would help me because every time like you inherit a new site, 777, 999, Backdrop, whatever, you never know what hosting platform it's on, like what they've got things set at. And I ran into this problem earlier this week on a Drupal 7 site I hadn't worked on for a while because we just updated Aqua, made everyone update to PHP 8, and guess what? Default value is still 1,000. And so the site that was working on Drupal 7 didn't work on Drupal 8, and it took me a while to figure out why. I edited a form and I saved it. Nothing happened. And it was just like, this sounds really familiar. And sure enough, yeah, it was just like, ah. So there's a Drupal patch if anyone wants to know on their Drupal sites too.
Let's see. We have a really, let's see. We have a documentation page for this already, which is great. Docs.backdropcms.org max-input-vars. So I couldn't get a more clear URL because we'll probably need to point at this page in our documentation. In the status report thing, because you want to be able to point somebody at a direct solution.
We do have a documentation page on it, and we already have a link in the messaging that goes there in the pull request.
Yeah.
It says read more about PHP max input var setting or something.
Yeah.
There's a link.
Okay. Yeah, the the 10,007 thing is a little bit weird, but yeah.
We can make it 10,001 if you would rather have it be 1. But I think that just matched the other, like it was already 7 from Drupal 7 for some settings in
in their documentation.
HT access, I think.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, anyway, that would be great to fix. This is also kind of interesting that in some situations, HT access can be used to increase the max input vars.
If you're on Apache.
Yeah, has it been, well, yeah, the entire HT access file only works on Apache, but has it been discussed just doing that in HT access too in the event that you're running Apache? It could.
We've already done that.
Oh, we've already done that? Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Take a look. Input. Sure enough.
There was a Drupal issue for it, and we merged it over with the.
Yep. Okay,
change.
Great. Okay, super. Okay. Yeah. So I think that's the fastest way to move forward is just pull out the status report, make that its own thing, and then I don't know if you want to take your current pull request that dynamically identifies it and move that into its own separate issue, or if you want to keep this one open and keep working in there.
I created another issue.
Okay. Great. All right, let's see. So in the world of Backdrop 123, let's see, one thing to note is that we did get in one last feature request after last week's meeting. So last week's meeting was was Feature Freeze Day. And although we didn't actually finish it on Feature Freeze Day, we merged it before the preview release was released, and that was the cleanup of the user profile page with vertical tabs. As a user experience fix, it actually kind of was, not kind of, but could be permitted even during or after the preview release. So we still kind of were within our own rules there. But we also got it out before the preview release. So right now the preview release is still cutting edge. It's got everything in it. And if you're looking at checking out what 123 is going to do, the preview release is a great place to look. So let's see, that was issue 3872, and that has been completed and merged. Also, let's see, in 123 land, Gregory Klonos found an issue with comment tests, issue 5764, that seemingly after merging the hide comment titles issue, that it caused a test to fail in comment test, but that failure is not actually bubbling up to be reported as a failure in GitHub. So it turns out there's actually a syntax error where there's like a missing semicolon. So that's a little embarrassing that we have a missing semicolon in there. And what seems to be happening is that the test is kind of silently crashing. I think if you looked at the GitHub Actions log, you could probably see the crash, but it's not being reported upwards as a failure to the pull request. So issue 5764 fixes the comment syntax error, comment test syntax error, but there's actually another test failure that is still happening on that pull request. So we have a little bit of sleuthing to do to get the comment tests running again. In the meantime, it's not actually holding up any other development work, but the comment test is just not being executed because it crashes with the syntax error. So it doesn't really stop other development because not all pull requests are failing their tests, at least according to GitHub. But it's a combination of both like undesirable and something that we should get fixed so that we have full test coverage again as soon as possible. So that's definitely a priority for us. I'm sure Greg could use some help getting that running. He filed a pull request a couple of days ago, but that was just fixing the syntax error. And there's a couple, the other failures will probably require a little bit of investigation to get worked out. And in response to that pull request, or that issue, there's some obvious shortcomings that we should try to address, like a syntax error should count as a failure on our test. And I think it does, actually. Syntax errors in the rest of Backdrop, the tests catch the syntax error and then report the syntax error as a failure. You know, when you get an error 500 instead of a page back, the tests fail. But in this case, the failure actually was in the test files themselves, and apparently that doesn't get caught. Well, one solution to that that Indigo Zella raised is that if we had a code linter running on Olive Core, that would identify, and stop these sorts of problems from happening. So that issue is 5245. She kind of pointed at this one again because she'd been working on a parallel issue as well, issue 5296. That adds PHP lint, and PHP lint only checks for major things like syntax errors, but doesn't check for code styling like tabs versus spaces. And she pointed out that if we use PHPCS for syntax checking, that there's also a simple plugin for PHPCS that also does linting. So we don't need two separate tools if we get PHPCS in there, because it can also do the linting. However, this PHPCS issue has been going on for a while. I think that we've got all the blockers out of the way. We now have a new repository for where the work is going on. I think the code is in it, and Indigo Zella has updated the pull request recently. So I think that this doesn't need anything new. It doesn't have any blockers. It just needs some review and some help to move forward. Okay, that's all that I've got actually for today. 123 is definitely where our focus is. We're kind of in this. It's not really a total code freeze because we can still do bug fixes. The RTBC list, and actually the issues that are in the 122.3 milestone, there's actually quite a few of them in there. Let me see. There are issues. Wow, 19 actually open pull requests that are RTBC already. And so we can work through those as soon as possible to try to get them completed. Wow, if we get these in, that'll bring our total number of bug fix issues down to 26 issues. That would be great. A historical low.
We got some bug fixers.
Yeah, well, I think the Herb Duel has been a little bit more aggressive about like cleaning up the minor, or sorry, the bug fix
Milestones.
queue. Like if something hasn't had any activity, or we've changed our direction on it, then he pulls it back out of the bug fix milestone, which has been
Makes
helpful.
sense.
Okay. I don't have any other topics for today. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
There's a new pull request up for the status report section of the max input bars issue. Tests are running now.
That's
I
the
labeled
typing
it.
that's been happening for the last 10 minutes.
Yes, I labeled it as a milestone candidate. So if someone else can add the milestone, then at least we can track it in the milestone and see if it'll get in. Issue number is 5771.
Great. Yeah, and then the other issue, 3824, could potentially be pulled out of the milestone.
Yeah, well,
it's up to you.
Yeah. Or we could bump it to the next one.
Yeah, and actually, this is kind of interesting because this, like, as I said earlier, like doing it during the minor release has some benefit because the warning shows up because like you've updated to the new minor version and it identifies something else. So doing this one actually shouldn't be in. Oh, you already did. You said minor. Sorry, it's a candidate for minor, not bug fix.
Bug fix. Yeah.
That's great. Okay, yeah, I'll just go ahead and second that. I'll put you as the advocate. Is that okay?
Yes.
I don't think this will be open for very long.
I've also been doing a ton of accessibility work for some of my clients' stuff. And every time I get feedback, we're working with the Center for Accessible Technology. Every time I get feedback from them on how something should behave in general that I think can be applied to Backdrop, I create an issue to talk about it. And so there's going to be a bunch of like relatively recent ally issues in the queue with all of that stuff on it. I'm hoping to work on some of those during open source day because those are usually minor markup changes that are reasonable for new people to work on, which is great. But I'm not entirely sure if all of them are things that belong in core, right? Because there's things that like we could do to improve core as we ship it that it isn't necessarily going to improve the end result of the website that people are building. Like, I'm not sure making core more accessible with like the basis theme in the current homepage configuration is going to make sites that build with Backdrop more accessible. So I could use some feedback on those as like, should that still be a priority? Because I've been sort of operating under the like, we should just make it accessible if we can. Yeah, I don't know. I guess getting some more feedback on how to establish patterns versus individual pages, because accessibility of every page is individual, right? Like the structure of every single page. And so even on one site, like a pattern that you put on the homepage isn't necessarily going to work on another page. And so it's really hard to build an accessible framework that's always accessible under all circumstances, because if you take the thing from one page and to put on another page, it might need a different pattern to make it accessible. So yeah, I'm struggling a little bit with how to reverse engineer a specific suggestion into a pattern. But
yeah, could you start from the beginning again? So for open source day, you're looking for issues that are particularly around accessibility to fix?
So I have been creating issues around accessibility just because that's what's happening in my regular work. And when I see something that Backdrop can benefit, I can create it. But when I create the issue, my intent is like, oh, this is great. It's a minor markup change. We can use it for open source day. But in the back of my head, I'm thinking, is this the best solution for backdrop? And part of it is because I don't know how like, okay, so let me use a specific example instead of talking about it generally. If you have an image that links to another page, the alternate text for that image needs to tell the screen reader where the link goes. And so,
It does? First of all,
yeah.
question mark? Because doesn't I mean, if it's inside of a link, the link already tells you where it goes because
No,
it's
because there's no text. Right,
okay,
so it
so
needs something for the screen reader to read. It's not just going to read out http:// whatever, like where the link goes.
oh, but a normal link only, what does a normal link do then?
There's text in it, so it just reads the text. So
Okay.
because in an image tag, it's an image, it reads the alternate text.
Right, which describes the image, I guess. But I mean,
Unless,
it's kind of true of links too, that links don't always necessarily describe where they're going to. It's good,
right.
but I guess that's a best
That's the
practice,
problem.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
the question is, like, we have these scenarios built into core where on any image, using image formatter, you can choose it to link it to the content or link it to the file. And the alternate text needs to be different in those two scenarios. And so the question, so I built in just a little change to the link formatter that was like, if the link is to content, then put in the alternate text that's the title of the content so people know where they're going. And if the link is the file, we could figure out, it would be like view image or whatever, like text we want in there instead. And that was the solution we ended up implementing for our site because we knew it would catch all linked images and that would work fine. But the people I'm working with, there's a bunch of ways you can solve this problem. Like one of them is you could just say, if it's, for example, an image in a teaser, you could just mark that image as like tab index -1 to make it invisible to the page because the teaser has a heading tag that links to its destination. And so you don't want the screen reader to go, link, page 2, link, page 2, because it's got the image and the heading. And so even though that's more helpful than like having a link and you don't know where it goes and it being like a beautiful sunset and you're like, but it's a link, like what does a beautiful sunset have to do with anything, right? That would be the if we were using the alternate text for the image instead of the destination. Even though having it said twice is better than that, the best possible experience is to have it only said once, right? So the question is like, how do we build something like that into Backdrop core, right? Because we don't know whether that image is going to be like linked to content in a view where there isn't a heading, or linked to content in a view mode where there is a heading, or even if you're in a view mode and there's a heading, if the heading isn't a link, if the image is the only link, like there's so many customizations you can do to that page. Your choice for what can make it most accessible is very specific to what you're doing. So in general, my thought is, well, let's do the thing that's not bad and not the thing that might be the best, because we aren't going to be able to know what the thing that is the best is until we have a specific page to diagnose. So yeah, I guess for this meeting, my note would be like, if anyone has thoughts on accessibility, can weigh in on some of these issues about what the scenarios are where changes are significant improvements or not. That would be helpful.
Yeah. Here's I'll put this in the Zoom chat, but I know it's not helpful for everybody else. But the W3C has a tutorial on what they call functional images. That seems to be kind of what this is mostly talking about, where yeah, it says exactly what you said, basically. That's like, you shouldn't describe the content of an image if an image serves a purpose, like instead of the logo, is a typical example, the logo in the header saying the logo of my company, it should say go back to the home page. So it should say what that image does rather than what is in the content of it. But this is in a particular situation where it's like specifically describing them as functional images, which I don't think that that's necessarily the same thing as images that are part of content, like the example used where it's like a teaser or maybe a card, right? Where there's like a link to the content and then immediately there's also an image that also links to the content. The alt text should just be the description of the image in that case, because there's
As
something
long as it's
there.
not a link. You have to remove the link if you want to use the description of the image.
I don't-
Because otherwise it will say link and then it will say a beautiful sunset. And that doesn't tell the person who's listening where that link goes. They don't know if it goes to the content. They don't know if it goes anywhere else. They still need to know where that link goes.
Okay,
You-
well, my interpretation of this page doesn't say that that's what should happen. That the description of where links should be used is only for images that only serve one purpose. You know, that they're really like the logo is actually the homepage link, for example. That's really its purpose. You don't even care that it's the logo of the company. But an image is like if there's actually like a something that is like an image related to the contents of an article, it should actually continue to describe the image. But yeah,
Do they
I
have a
guess
recommendation for how to tell the screen reader where the link goes? Because that was the problem our users were having. There might be some alternate solution that's like you can add ARIA attributes to the anchor tag, which I don't think is normally a thing, but maybe that might be a way to get around it. So then it would say link goes to page 2, image, a beautiful sunset, and then at least they would know where the link would go if they were to select that. Because you don't want them to select an element and lose where they are on the page if that's not actually where they want to go, because that's a hard experience trying to get back to the previous page and back to the same part of the page you were on before you accidentally click the link.
let's see. Decorative image is part of a text link.
It's not text link though.
Oh, yeah, this is a situation where the anchor tag wraps around both text and an image. So
I
it's
was
not
thinking that
right.
would be a good solution for cards too.
Yeah, it is a good solution for cards, but not in all situations. Like again, it's like site specific, because sometimes you have multiple things inside of the card, like maybe a short sentence or something like that that might also have a link in it, or a taxonomy term that might also have a link. So sometimes cards aren't themselves always the entire thing one link.
Oh no, that's really bad. You can't link the whole card for accessibility because it'll read everything inside the link to the screen reader. Even if you just have a paragraph of text, that's still really bad. What you want to do is link the image and the heading and none of the rest of the content. So I was thinking like we could have an option where we inject the image tag, like either inside the heading tag or just, I don't know if you can go inside, just outside the heading tag. So it'd be like a tag, image tag, H tag, and then the text, and then a tag closes, and then content would go below. So rather than having it like all right now, all of the field renderers print the image out in the body area and people like move it around in the template file and stuff. I was thinking we could put it inside the heading link. Then you could link the image and the heading and you'd have the text you need in there without having it duplicated. But I couldn't figure out like this, so that would be like a lot of pre-processing to shove the image into the $ title variable in the node template, which seemed like a bad idea.
That would 100% break everyone's CSS.
Oh yeah, for sure. I was thinking about that as a solution for our own specific, like not necessarily for core.
I feel like the only real solution to this is just to implement tooling and not actually fix the problem directly.
What do you mean by tooling?
I mean, like give people a alt text overrides that you can put tokens in. Because like by default, those take the alt text from the image field. And
actually, I don't think the image formatter uses any alt text at all.
Oh, there you go. Well, that's a great example of something that could be fixed then, right? Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any settings on the image formatter either, because alt text is specified when you upload the file, not
right. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's the sort of thing where it's like when you specify the formatter and you say original image or image style, there could also be like options for alt text tokenization or something like that.
Yeah.
Although that's, yeah, without knowing a reason, it's a little bit hard to describe why you would want to override the alt text. I would just imagine that could lead to a lot of user errors where they type in something like, the image alt text, and then suddenly all of their images on their entire site
Yeah.
all
We
have
could
the
also
same alt
have
text. So,
default values set. So when you said link to, like, it would automatically be like file image alt or whatever, the token. And then when you switch to link to content, it could go node title. And when you switch back to image, it could go file image alt again, so that you would know, like, when you change, you could see an example of what we're like, this is what you should, hear some good defaults. But then if people are like, oh, I don't want that, then they can override it. But they could also ignore the settings, and then it would just sort of naturally do something accessible.
here's
So it's
a
like,
I found a W3C example of it's described as combining adjacent image and text links for the same resource. That sounds like what we're talking about.
Is this H2 link you dropped in?
Yeah. I'm not totally sure this will help yet, but no, it's still, I don't know. This example is still wrapping
Both with it.
the both of them
Anchor.
together. Yeah. So it's not like an image or a heading followed by an image with separate links. Well, maybe the longer, it might actually just be what they're saying that you should do.
what was
But
what was the other thing you said where you could make it invisible to the screen reader?
Yeah, if you had tab index -1, then the screen reader will skip the image link entirely and just start on the heading. Like, pulls it out of the page flow for the screen reader.
And that would be a property on the HTML element.
Yeah, on the anchor tag.
Okay.
yeah, it's funny. This documentation page describes the problem that you're saying, Jen, like in pretty clear terms. But then the solution it recommends is totally unfeasible.
Is that the one anchor tag with both things inside?
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, unfeasible for, most situations. Like the styling of this would just be way more difficult. But it's and wouldn't work for something that is like a field-based system, like a content management system, unless you started doing crazy things like if you
Combo
started doing
fields.
field grouping or something like that, and then added the ability to extract a link from one of the child elements and apply it to the wrapper. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, yeah, not very feasible for us.
Yeah.
I mean, we could do that. Like we could just add that as a feature to field group.
Field group. Link your group.
Yeah. Sorry, going on a tangent here. I've been building out a backdrop site recently, and the layout system's ability to like move the title around is pretty incredible. But one thing that I found that, well, I almost missed it. I was like, it would be nice if I could take the title and the title of the page and use that as the title of a block. But then I realized that wasn't necessary because I can just place the title block and then remove all the wrappers from it, and then I can move the title around to anywhere I want on the page. Yeah, so kind of similar, actually, that the layout title can take the title of any block on the page and then use that. It's kind of, I don't know. It's not. I'm just saying, in some places we actually have systems that are flexible enough to handle this kind of complicated situation.
Yeah.
But layouts are
titles.
very, very complex.
Yeah. No, titles are difficult. in general.
Yep.
Special.
Well, Jen, I'm not quite sure what to.
It's fine. I don't need an answer. I just wanted to tell people the issue was out there so that if they wanted to go and weigh on it, they could. So we can
Okay.
figure it out.
What was the issue number in particular that you're referencing?
This one I'm looking at is tab. Not this one. Not this one. Not this one. I'll find it in a minute. Here it is. Issue number 5765.
Yep. Okay. 5765. When an image links to content, the alt text should be the title of the destination. Okay. Yeah, kind of an interesting challenge in that one. Okay. Yeah, let's weigh in there on the issue if we have additional feedback to get it saved for posterity. I don't have any other topics for today. We kind of already just went on a tangent just to
because we did
talk about something.
Time.
Yeah, because we had time, exactly. So let's go ahead and wrap up for today. Thanks again to all of our contributors for excellent work going into the 123 release. It's going to be a really great release. There's just a fantastic collection of functionality. We tried not to save everything for the last minute. We had some successes with that, especially with entity reference, but then at the end of it, like the last 6 pull requests all came in the last 2 days. So for better or worse, deadlines work. And yeah, it was a great release in the way that we got all of these substantial features in for the release coming out next week. So let's go ahead and call it for today.